Hello, everyone. Rob's here, Frank's here, Roger's here. I'm curious, Roger. Huh. Well, normally, Roger, we talk after the show. Hey, Chuck Joyner's here, everybody. Chuck Joyner in the house. Um, Normally, we talk after the show. I'm curious, Roger, though. We got about a minute before we're supposed to start. What's the Great Apple ripoff? Michael T. Rose is also here. I hope you have time to tell me, Roger, before we get started. Donna's here. The gang's all here. We could not talk about what I was planning to talk about. We could just talk about who's here if you want to. Assuming you have accessories. Ah, okay. You're still upset about that. I get it. I don't blame you. I understand why they're doing it. I don't blame you for being upset about it. I think we talked about that here earlier this week. I'm not sure. I know we talked about it. Tom Merritt and I actually touched on it briefly on today's in a few minutes. But yeah. Right. YouTube was giving me a little bit of trouble earlier. So I logged on a tiny bit early. Yeah, the USB-C cable is the final irritation. It stinks. I'm with you. Hey, John. All right. I have to stop paying attention to the chat right now, but I will come back to the chat after we're done with, the recording part of the show. If you've subscribed, by the way, thank you very much to the podcast. Of course, if you're here, there's almost no reason for you to subscribe to the podcast because you get more being here than people subscribing to the podcast get because they don't get the part beforehand with me going, what am I going to talk about? And me afterwards going, oh, yeah, that's interesting. But if you subscribe to that, I appreciate it. So thanks. Actually ended up macOS Ken Live ended up in the top 200 of technology podcasts today, a place that it has not been in about 8 years because there was no show. But anyway, let's do a thing and then hang out in the chat room because we'll do some more later. Hey, Bill. Okay, now really that's it. I'm done with the chat room right now, but I'll be back there in a little while. It's beginning to look a lot like a SuperCycle, and it's your new home, Charlie Brown. It is Tuesday, the 20th of October, 2020, and this is macOS Ken Live. I feel like I had something I was going to say at this part. Feel certain I had like something pithy and witty. I'll just go with, hi, I'm Ken Ray, welcoming you into this edition of macOS Ken Live. A fun show that I've been doing for about a month, even though it's only been available publicly for a couple of days, I think. If you have found it, I'm grateful. And if you haven't found it, well, I'll speak up so you can. Second half of the show, we're going to be talking about Charlie Brown. The whole Peanuts gang has found a new home on Apple TV Plus. How do you personally feel about it? You can't tell me right now, but you could leave me feedback later. I'll let you know how to do that later. I've got thoughts and feelings on it, which I will be more than happy to share. That is coming up in the second half of the show. First half of the show, though, it's beginning to look like a SuperCycle. I know, right? This probably falls under the "a broken clock is right twice a day" thing. I feel like Wall Street has been projecting a SuperCycle for at least the past couple of iPhones, although certainly a lot of people did say 5G will actually be the thing that's going to kick us into a SuperCycle. I personally wonder whether we know for certain if it is 5G, but that's because I'm cantankerous. Cantankerous, you might say. That was terrible. Is it the new design? Is it the fact that we've all been locked inside, and if we still have money, we want to treat ourselves to something? Is it really 5G? I know 5G is the buzzword. At the same time, if you don't happen to live in a place where there's really great 5G coverage, We're not going downtown the way we used to, most of us. We're not going to the places where 5G is going to be most prevalent, where the or millimeter wave 5G is going to be most prevalent at this point. I don't know if we know why there's a super cycle, but everybody's saying it looks like there is a super cycle right now. I got notes from Piper Morgan. Nope. JP Morgan analyst Samik Chatterjee, Piper Sandler analyst Harsh Kumar, TF International analyst Ming Chi Kuo, and a new one today from Daniel Ives. Let us run through them really quickly. Writing about the whole technology space last week, Harsh Kumar said the biggest event of last week was the Apple iPhone 12 announcement, where the company introduced 4 new 5G iPhones. We view the new iPhone pricing as very compelling given the functionality. We note shipment expectations continue to be in the 73 million to 74 million range. That number has gone up according to Daniel Ives, but we'll get to that in a moment. Samik Chatterjee is really turned on by the lead times he's seeing. He's saying, and this was written a day ago, I guess. So one day, the lead times on an iPhone 12 were about 13 days. The lead times on an iPhone 12 Pro were about 24 days. A lot of people took that to mean that Apple is definitely selling more iPhone 12 Pros than they're selling iPhone 12s. I got a bit cantankerous about that because I don't think we know that for certain. I didn't see anything in the note that said that for certain. There is some stuff to support that, but we don't know how many iPhone 12 Pros Apple built to how many iPhone 12s. We don't know which ones people are going for more. We're not likely to know that unless the numbers are so blowout that Tim Cook pretty much has to talk about it on the earnings call, which I believe is the end of next week, Thursday, the 29th, I believe. Thursday, the 29th will be the next earnings call. And if iPhone 12 Pro is absolutely blowing it out of the water, then that is the kind of thing he might be likely to say. You're still not going to get hard numbers, but you might hear something along those lines from him. Now, I said we got support for the idea that the iPhone 12 Pro is actually outselling the iPhone 12, and that came from our good friend, TF International analyst Ming Chi Kuo. He doesn't seem to think, though, that it's people wanting the 12 more, wanting the 12 Pro more than they want the 12. It's people wanting to save more money or wanting to save money more. Here, I'll just read what he said. The iPhone 11 price cut to $599 caused weaker pre-order demand for iPhone 12. So people got to the website, apparently, and they started looking at what they could get for what amount of money. According to his estimation, a lot of people who would have gone ahead and gotten the iPhone 12 were turned on by how close to iPhone 12 iPhone 11 is for $200 less. Is it $200 less or $100 less? $200 less, right? Yeah, because it starts at $799 for the iPhone 12. So, again, there's so much stuff that we don't know. I am hoping that something is so drastic that Tim Cook goes ahead and says something about that. Instead, what we'll probably say is we've been really excited about the, interest, uptake, adoption, what have you, of iPhone 12, which they will have already launched at that point. And he'll be really excited about the iPhone 12 Pro Max and the iPhone 12 Mini that'll be coming out in a couple of weeks after the earnings call. Coming out a couple of weeks after, being made available to order 1 week after. Two other things that are interesting in Ming Chi Kuo's note, to me anyway, and they had to do with China. We hadn't heard a lot about China going into the sale of the new iPhones. The two things that we had heard, and I mentioned this on today's macOS Ken, are that China is not going to be as aggressive on carrier subsidies as Europe and the US are. That was thing number one. And thing number two, China did not get to watch the high-speed event for reasons that are still unknown. That was written about the day that it happened. I let it sort of sit there for a day, went ahead and talked about it on macOS Ken. I have written to Apple and, been ignored the way I always am when I write to Apple. It got picked up again over the weekend that for some reason, all of the Weibo and Tencent and other social media platforms in China were supposed to carry it. They had actually promoted the fact that they were going to carry it, and then come day of, they don't carry it. I actually wondered whether that would have any effect on iPhone sales, and the answer, according to Ming Chi Kuo, is no. He says that 35% to 45% of iPhone Pro demand came out of China. So somewhere between a third and half of the iPhone Pros sold in the first 72 hours came from a country that didn't even get to watch the launch. Partly, though, because they have a lot more 5G availability there than we have here. And who's not turned on at this point to the fact that you get a new iPhone in the fall? I mean, there are some people who, well, I shouldn't say who's not, because I mean, I can't tell you when the new line of, XYZ fashion comes out. And there are some people who would think that that's ghastly. If you're interested at all in technology, if you're interested at all in having a relatively recent uh, smartphone, iPhone in particular, to look for it in the fall. So, despite not being able to watch the event as it happened, or being able to watch the event as Cupertino pushed play on the DVD player or however they stream it, it's not like China was caught completely off guard. Still interesting, though, that without having the big dog and pony show, Foofarella, pomp and circumstance, they still made up somewhere between a third and half of iPhone Pro sales over the weekend. So says Ming Chi Kuo. There is one other note that I haven't hit yet because it's actually going to be in tomorrow's macOS Ken. Wedbush analyst Daniel Ives is out saying, total SuperCycle. Not because of anything about lead times or stuff like that, but because he and his have been looking into the supply chain. He has actually seen demand go up consistently since September. I have those notes. Where did I put them? I think they're right here. In September, he says we were looking for between 65 and 75 million iPhones to be made by the supply chain for this launch period, which I don't know if that's the whole first quarter, if that's the first month. I don't know what that is exactly. But for the initial launch period, he was looking for between 65 and 70 million iPhones to be produced, iPhone 12s, that is, across the line. Going into last week's high-speed event, that had already got up 5 million, so he was looking for about 75 million units. Since the high-speed event, and I guess since orders started this past weekend, he's now thinking 80 million units for the launch period, with the possibility of pushing that to the mid-80s. So people are kind of grooving on it. Again, we don't know exactly why. I feel like 5G is part of it right now, even if, and we've talked about this here, a lot of people here, I know there are people in the chat room right now who say 5G is not going to be a thing right now. And that may be true, but the buzzword is buzzing. It's hit. We're all interested in the 5G phone now, which is funny because I feel like we're all, and I don't just mean Apple people, I think we're all interested in the 5G phone now because there's a 5G iPhone. Then again, I live in the Apple bubble, so what do I know? Ives thinks that pre-orders are tracking 2 times the iPhone 11 lineup, so he thinks basically this year is going to absolutely crush last year. That suggests a robust start out of the gates for the iPhone 12, according to Mr. Ives. I will say it almost, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, and this is how I come back to the I'm not sure it's 5G, although it feels like that's certainly playing a part at this point. He figures there are about 950 million iPhones in use right now. About 350 million of those he thinks are in the upgrade window. So, yeah, people might be excited about 5G, but his thinking is about a third of the phones. Now's the time. I mentioned again, I think I might have mentioned this before the show, actually, to the people in the chat room. Tom Merritt and I were talking on Today's in a few minutes about the new stuff that Apple has introduced. And he's actually getting a new iPhone this year, but it's not about 5G. It's not about that gorgeous blue color. It's not about the new design. It's about the fact that he had an iPhone 10, 3 years old, and it's time to upgrade. So he's in the upgrade window and he's going through. And I'm not jealous at all. I'm only jealous of the color. I think he's getting a Pro, actually. I can't remember which color he said he was getting. My phone is great. And I'm not going anywhere that 5G is going to mean anything because, I'm still in the middle of the great hunker down. Okay, it doesn't mean I'm not jealous, but I'm not doing anything about it. Coming up in just a moment, we're going to talk about Charlie Brown and Peppermint Patty and Lucy and Linus and all the other ones whose names I can't think of. Sherman, Pigpen, Snoopy, of course, and Woodstock. They're all moving to Apple TV Plus. We'll talk about that in a moment. But first, I do want to remind you about some other stuff that I do. Why don't we talk about the checklist brought to you by Secure Mac? That's another show that I host. Comes out every Thursday. Kind of a general consumer look at computer security or cybersecurity or data security, whatever way you want to say that. What's funny is the further I get into that show, the more I realize that a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about on that show for years is the kind of stuff they're telling you in businesses as well. I'm not saying we're going to make you a CISO. I'm saying a lot of the stuff that's coming out is stuff that we've been talking about for a while. So if you have a friend or family member who keeps answering the phone when the scammers call and say, of course you can take over my computer, this is the show for them. I still learn stuff from this show. Hopefully you will as well, but tell your friends, tell your family. The checklist brought to you by Secure Mac online at securemac.com/checklist. You can also find it wherever you find podcasts every Thursday, as I say, and it would be great if you would join me for that. So let's talk about Charlie Brown. I don't know why my grandmother thought I loved Snoopy so much. I have a special place in my heart for Peanuts, for Charlie Brown, for Snoopy in particular, because my grandmother would give me Charlie Brown stuff or Snoopy stuff for every holiday. All of my birthday cards, all of my Christmas cards. Well, I didn't get Christmas cards from her, but all my birthday cards were Snoopy. I have a fantastic 25th anniversary of Peanuts coffee table book that has some of his earliest drawings, and that always really turned me on, like doodles that Charles Schultz would do when he was in the army during World War II, and some of the earliest Peanut stuff and things like that. I don't know that I ever actually got to decide whether I like Charlie Brown and Snoopy. My grandmother decided I like Charlie Brown and Snoopy, so it's always had a special place in my life, a special place in my heart. When they announced that Peanuts' official home now is going to be Apple TV Plus, I had a few things, starting with that personal, emotional tie that I have to it. But of course, I immediately started thinking about whether or not it made sense for them. Oh yeah, putting my glasses on because smaller notes. Started thinking about what else Apple could have bought that would be along a similar line. And it's weird because Peanuts is actually celebrating its 70th anniversary either this year or next year. I'm not sure which. There's a documentary coming from Imagine Documentaries about it that's going to be on Apple TV Plus. So Disney, of course, owns all the Disney stuff. Mickey Mouse is like 95 years old, 92, 95, somewhere around there. They also picked up the Muppets somewhere along the way. Now, they didn't pick up all of the Jim Henson stuff because Apple TV Plus still has Fraggle Rock. Netflix did that Dark Crystal series that they canceled. Helpsters is not Muppets. It's Children's Television Workshop, I believe, or Sesame Workshop. I can't remember which. But anyway, if you're looking to get in good with the kids, you can't pick up Mickey Mouse and you can't pick up the Muppets. Okay, well, what about Bugs and Daffy and Yosemite Sam and Sylvester? First of all, I don't know if the kids are actually hip to who they are at this point. But second, no, you can't have them because I believe that they're all tied up with HBO, Time Warner, AT&T now. So if you're going to go after something that's going to speak to kids and maybe more importantly, speak to adults to speak to kids, why did my grandmother decide that, that Charlie Brown was a thing for me or that Snoopy was a thing for me? I'm not sure, but that was a thing that she gave to me. And so that has always been a part of my life. That's from the time I was smaller than that. And I'm holding my hand near the ground. From the time I was smaller than that, somebody decided that was going to be a thing for me. And so maybe it's a sensible thing for Apple to do that because they're getting, of course, the educational stuff like Snoopy in Space and Peanuts in Space. Secrets of Apollo 10, I believe, was one of the specials that they had or series that they had. They're, of course, doing a whole Snoopy series called The Snoopy Show. And here's where I get a little weird. They've picked up the specials. They've picked up, what is it? It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, a Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, and a Charlie Brown Christmas. And that's weird to me because that used to be a thing that you would, well, honestly, more often than not, I would end up missing it. When I was a little kid, I would always know what night it was going to be on and I would watch it. When I got into like junior high and high school, I sort of started to forget. And then actually a couple of years ago, I started to get bummed that I couldn't find it. So I'm really glad now that it's going to be available to me. I worry about the loss of cultural touchstone. And I know that may sound crazy, but I worry about that. Do you know the whole story about the last episode of MASH? The last episode of MASH when they nearly like blew out the sewage system, sorry, the plumbing system in New York City because nobody got up from their chair until that show was over, and then they all went at once and made use of the facilities and nearly crushed that system for New York City because that many millions of people. We're so far removed from that. The kind of thing that we might have like that now might be the Super Bowl, might be the World Series. Although I think the World Series just happened and I didn't even realize it was happening. And of course, this year is weird because I didn't even realize sports was happening, to be honest. But there's something kind of strange about the fact that it's going behind a paywall. But almost everything has gone behind a paywall. Plus, we all have things that. What's great about the amount of content that we have now is there is almost definitely something out there for you. And that's going to mean so much to you. And it's going to mean so much to the people you know or people you don't even know who are into the same thing. On the other hand, we don't all have that moment. We don't all have those things anymore, which is not necessarily bad because we all get our own thing now, but we're not all going to be together on any one thing, I think. So here's what's cool about the fact what they are doing with the specials that is cool. I worry that people aren't going to know where to find it, how to find it. They are at least still making those specials available to people for free. Whether that's going to be every year, I don't know, but that is going to be this year. I think you get 48 to 72 hours for the specials. So I don't remember the dates. I don't have them on top of my head. I apologize. I know the one for It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, is October 30th through November 1st. Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, I want to say, is right around Thanksgiving, though I can't remember exactly when. A Charlie Brown Christmas is the middle of December. I want to say the 11th to the 13th. Start streaming for people who have it, who have Apple TV Plus on the 4th. It will be made available for free for a couple of days for each one. I don't know how they're going to let people know that. And I don't know how they're going to educate people on how they get it. I would imagine we'll see a bit of a push. It's kind of interesting. It goes back to what we were talking about yesterday with the Apple Music thing. Not that Charlie Brown is a commercial for anything, although the number of toys that my grandmother got me and cards and what have you might argue differently. I don't know. We might have been losing those things anyway. That's fine. Here's the other thing that's interesting. I actually went looking for it today. Of course, they have the series that they've already done. They're talking about making new specials and new series. There's going to be one for Earth Day. There's going to be one for Mother's Day. There's going to be one for New Year's. That could actually be kind of interesting. If you can convince your kid that you're staying up to midnight and they're actually only staying up till 8 and Snoopy dances as the ball drops and then they go to bed and you can actually have a Happy New Year. I don't know. So they're making new specials. The specials that are already out and the series that are already out are already available on Apple TV Plus. What's interesting is the movies are not. I was actually excited to watch Bon Voyage, Charlie Brown. Don't ask me why. I remember it from when I was a kid. And Snoopy Come Home, which always made me incredibly sad. I mean, he does come home, so it ends well, but it makes me sad in the middle. Those are not available for Apple TV Plus. Those you can rent or buy through Apple TV Plus. Isn't that kind of them? But they don't come free with the whole thing. I don't know. That might have been more personal than anything else, honestly. It's the one other thing I will say, because I was trying to think of other properties they might have bought. For some reason, I thought of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I believe they're actually owned by Marvel now, so that's not going to happen. But the thing that rang in my mind about considering whether they should have done the Charlie Brown thing is what Tim Cook said when he introduced Apple TV Plus. great stories can change the world. Lucy is just a terrible, terrible character. She's just mean, but there are great stories that you can tell around all that stuff. Bugs Bunny's really good at blowing up Daffy Duck. He's really good at annoying Yosemite Sam. The Disney characters tend to be fairly nice, but I don't see them doing a lot of problem solving. The Peanuts thing can actually work as both a cute and funny thing. There is still stuff that happens in some of those comic strips, honestly, in that book that I was talking about. Just the joie de vivre in the drawings still makes me laugh my head off when I see them. There's one I'm thinking about right now in particular that has made me laugh since I was like 8. It's a thing that can entertain. It is a thing that can also instruct. They might be able to tell great stories that change the world, and it's not gonna be as much of the world as when everybody got together at 7:30 on, that Monday night, to watch it on CBS. But they do have the opportunity to really touch the lives of people whose lives they're able to. So, yeah, I guess I'm a fan of the idea. Curious what you think. You can always leave feedback here on this video. You can also send me an email, info@macosken.com. That is INFO, info@macosken.com. Speaking of which, I did get some feedback yesterday regarding the Apple Music TV discussion that we had here. Ridiculously excited. And again, I'm probably going to tune in Thursday to see what they do for the Bruce Springsteen thing, because they're doing the Bruce Springsteen thing on Thursday leading into the album release at midnight. So mark your calendar, circle your calendar, whatever. Just remember that that's happening. Anyway, we talked a lot about Apple Music TV yesterday, and John wrote in to say, I'm sorry, is it only one channel? I'm betting I won't be watching because so much of popular music today tends to be kind of offensive to me. Language, bad beat poetry, questionable images, etc. I would like to have somewhere to go to discover music besides your show, but there's just so much that rubs me the wrong way. I hate to say get off my lawn, but some of it's not music to me. Now, if they provided multiple channels in different genres, I could get behind that. How about a Jonathan Colton channel? I guess time will tell. It's funny, John, because I actually meant to say yesterday, it's great that Apple is rebooting MTV, but now, remember what the phrase was? I want my MTV. Going back to what we were talking a moment ago about the fact that there's something out there for everybody, it's kind of interesting to me that Apple spent so long doing Apple Music or Beats Music or whatever it was called. It's Apple Music One now, I think, that they spent so long with one radio station that was supposed to be all things to all people. And of course, they knew it wasn't going to be all things to all people, but that one radio station on which they concentrated. After 5 years, they've gone to 3 radio stations, one called Hits, one called Country, and of course, the Apple Music One. I found myself in the exact same place, John. What I want is MTV from the 80s. Doesn't have to be, personality driven like we talked about yesterday. I don't need a VJ necessarily. What I need is the Eurythmics. What I need is Duran Duran. What I need is the Cars. I want an alternative one. I want not Headbangers Ball, 120 minutes. I want 120 minutes, but for however many minutes are in a day. You could argue that you can get what you want, John, by going to, Vimeo, or there are actually playlists of older music videos on Apple Music, which is another thing that we'll get to here in just a second. I've got one that I've never started because I know I won't actually listen to it while I work. I will instead just sit there and watch music videos all afternoon. So yeah, I'm with you. I want another channel. Check back in 5 years, maybe. Now, something interesting happened to Frank yesterday. He also wrote in. He was looking for the Apple Music TV thing, and that actually led him to a bunch of other video stuff. I need to ask Frank where he found it. There's a little bit for everyone, said Frank. A true buffet. Spent last night listening to an hour-long interview with excerpts, with 2 of the Heartbreakers reviewing the remix of the super deluxe edition of Tom Petty's Wildflowers. I will say, I think Apple Music is horrible for finding video. There was a documentary series that was supposed to be produced with Vice a while ago that I was really excited about. They were going to cover rap on Native American reservations. There was like an EDM thing coming out of Minnesota, I want to say, and it really looked really, really interesting to me. And I can only ever find one of those, and it was because I followed a link from the article about it. I have never been able to find them independently on Apple Music. Now, of course, it is a music thing, but their video discovery is pants. It's just the worst. So that just evolved to me complaining. I think that's going to wrap us for today. If you're here live in the chat room, please stay in the chat room. I will be there momentarily. If you're catching this podcast, thank you very much for so doing. And yeah, we're here live Monday through Friday, 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern, other times, other places. Ask the person next to you what time it is, one time zone over, and you do the math. Yeah, got Mac OS Ken tomorrow. Got this again tomorrow afternoon. Talk to you soon. You hear the crows? I hired them special just to finish up this show. I'm going to sip my coffee, then put on my glasses, and see what you guys are up to over there. Tons of chat in the chat room. I saw that. Hopefully it wasn't all people going, why did he stop moving? Right. Let us see who is here. Who else can I say hello to? Hello, Peter. That is a name I did not see earlier. Hello, Laura. Holy cow, you guys said a lot. That's kind of awesome, except I don't know if I'm going to get to all of it. No 5G, says David. So he's talking about the iPhone. Okay, where am I? Top 200. Yeah, top 200. Top 200 is great. I'm not complaining at all. One day I would like for somebody to explain to me what Apple is doing with podcasts. Bill says his carrier is advertising 5G, but they have a problem with 4G in all areas already. It's kind of an interesting thing, right? Talked to somebody a while ago who had tested my carrier sponsor from Mac OS Ken. Had tested them around the house and it was fine. And then they went on a trip and they had difficulty. But then he told me where he was driving and like the area he was driving to. And I had that trouble with my old carrier in that area as well. There was actually a trip that I used to take twice a year that I would hit edge. And this was only like 3 or 4 years ago. So that can be kind of difficult. Frank says he's getting the new phone for the camera. I don't know, Frank, are you saying you're getting the new phone for the camera, or that's what would do it? I actually don't know if you're getting a new phone or not. 5G kills your battery and makes your phone hot to the touch, says Rob. Is that one of the new phones, Rob, or is that some of the other phones that are out there? Moving right along. Sorry. Sold his 8 Plus and bought an SE 2020, bought several Mark lenses and quite happy, says Frank. So it sounds like you're actually staying with the phone you got. See, I'm about 20 minutes behind you, Frank. I apologize. Okay, it looks like there was quite a debate going on about chargers, so I'm going to leave that to you guys. Sesame Workshop was previously called the Children's Television Workshop, so they're basically one and the same. Thank you, Laura. I appreciate that. I would like to know what part Jim Henson Company has in anything. They still have a studio. I know that because I passed it a few months ago when I was in LA. They have the old Charlie Chaplin studio. It's really neat. They've got a Kermit the Frog sitting out front. I assume they're working on things like, like the Dark Crystal thing. And there was supposed to be a Labyrinth sequel at one point. I don't know if there still is or not because, hashtag these uncertain times. Also, no Bowie. So how do you do a Labyrinth sequel with no Bowie? I don't know. Hmm. Frank says the last episode of the Mary Tyler Moore Show had the same sort of thing as the MASH show. Did not realize that, Frank. I mean, unless you're talking about, if you're talking about the impending disaster with city infrastructure, I didn't know that. If you're talking about the whole world tuning in, yeah, another one with Mary Tyler Moore is when baby, no, that's Lucy. It was baby Ricky. I apologize. I don't know if the Dick Van Dyke Show child had that same sort of social thing. I also can't remember his name. John with the old SNL bit. I was told there would be no math. Hey, cool. Glad to hear that, Frank. By the way, Hank, excuse me, not Frank. Hank, I got your email and I'm considering my response. I'm not ignoring it. I'm on the horns of a dilemma, actually. We may talk about that here one day, but I don't want you to think I'm just ignoring your email. I've been considering it. Yeah, Matthew misses 120 minutes. Of course you do, because you had taste. I still remember Henry Rollins hosting that show one time because we had it on videotape at the place where I lived, and we would just watch that tape over and over again. That's interesting. Matthew, a different Matthew, says if 5G does kill your battery or get your phone hot, maybe that's why they have it turn itself off and on automatically. That's an interesting point, honestly. Wow. Oh, that's sad to hear. John says he has a puppet maker friend who has worked with Henson off and on. She and hers are struggling right now. Lots of people are. It's terrible, especially if she lives in LA, because, of course, you live in LA because that's where the work is, right? But it costs a lot to live in LA because a lot of people want to live there because they either work there or they want. Pardon me. I'm so sorry. Oh, that's terrible. I should have stopped 10 minutes ago so that would never happen. I worry for your friend. I worry for lots of people that I know who are out of work, though. So, not well. Anyway. Well, Hank, I want to give you one anyway because it's not unreal. Oh, she's in New York. Well, it's cheap to live in New York. Ugh. Oh, cool. That's neat. I would like to know more about this person, John. Do they have any public facing anything that you could send me? A website or anything like that? If so, I think you know my email address, info@macosken.com. Right. I'm going to go turn this into an audio podcast and put it out for those people. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I think this is probably the biggest day as far as people watching so far. I really appreciate it. It means a lot because otherwise it would be me talking to me. You guys are the best. I got to go. Till tomorrow. Indeed, Frank, until tomorrow. I did miss that, Laura. Laura says, you missed my comment about Apple possibly buying Garfield. Is he uplifting? I'll tell you honestly, I started thinking about that, like Kathy, Blondie. I was thinking about Blondie. I was thinking about something that had been around as long as, because I started talking about that a minute ago. Like Bugs has been around for like 80 something years, right? Mickey's been around for 90 something. Snoopy's been around for almost 70 years now. It's kind of crazy. I think Nancy and Sluggo are still out there somewhere as well. They're okay. All right. I'm out, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Seriously. Talk to you tomorrow.